What's up, guys? Today is the day that I get my FRS back. Finally. So today we are taking this engine that I rebuilt. Go ahead and check out my channel for the previous videos of the rebuild. All of that's there. And we're putting it back in this car. So far, all we've done is bring the engine to my dad's house from my house where I was building it. Took it off of the engine stand, and we have it in the air, balanced pretty evenly by these chains. And over here, we cleaned up everything. Right here, I power washed it all over there by the battery. That's all like corroded and rusting a little bit from the battery that was corroding for so long. I'm gonna try to clean some of that off and then paint it, but we'll see. I'm not gonna worry about that today, I don't think. Clean the oil from the timing cover leak off of that area and power wash everything else. So all I'm gonna be working on right now is installing the clutch. So over here we have to take the engine stand piece off and install the flywheel, the triggering gear first before the flywheel, and then install the clutch. And then over here we have to install the throwout bearing. I am gonna also, I believe I got a new pilot bearing for that too. And the clutch kit is right over here. It's an Exceedy, or however you pronounce it. Exceedy clutch kit. I didn't want to get an eBay one just in case, because this car's got to be super reliable. The eBay ones have been good for me so far in all of my other cars, but I just wanted this to work. So Exceedy kit. I'm gonna go ahead and open this up and get everything going. So here I need to take off this old rusty throwout bearing, which was making noise before I even pulled this transmission out. It's feels okay, but it also feels kind of clunky. This needs to come out, make room for this nice new one. And I think in order to do that, it looks like there's some pins right here that have to slide up. I could be wrong, but these pins come off somehow, and I'm gonna figure it out. Looks like that tab comes out there. And then it can slide up. Alright, so I figured out how to get these pins off, and they just kind of rotate off of the throwout bearing, and then I greased that stuff up. I pulled the fork off and greased behind it here, and cleaned everything off and cleaned this stuff off up there. So we're gonna go ahead and throw this throwout bearing on now. Okay, sorry I didn't show you, it's kind of tight in here, but I got it on now. And we should be good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and bolt the clutch onto the engine. Okay, so we have the clutch installed here and the throwout bearing installed in there. So now we're ready to put this back in the car. So I gotta make a run really quick, and when I come back, we'll pull the car in here and then drop that in. Okay, we got the car in the garage on the lift, and we're gonna go ahead and drop the motor in. Okay, so after a lot of fighting, finally got the engine in. I've always, with every car that I've ever worked on, been told not to pull the transmission in with the bolts. But with this engine and transmission, I do remember when we took it out, we actually had to use a pry bar to separate the engine from the transmission. So I don't think that it was just gonna pop together. So what we did was very carefully wiggle the engine, try to get it in, and we used a couple bolts, and we were tightening them with our fingers as tight as we could, then wiggle the engine, tightened it with our fingers a little bit more. That verified that wiggling it was getting it to go in. It was just taking a very, very long time. Once we got it close enough that I felt pretty confident with, we started running the bolts in with the wrench. I did also check. We put the car in gear in the air, and then turned the engine with the crank, and the rear wheels did spin. So everything should be lined up and fine. We have 3 bell housing bolts in right now. The motor mounts are in place, but they're not bolted in, but they're slotted into where they're supposed to be on the support bar. So this thing is in. Tomorrow I'm going to pick up right here and finish putting the bolts in the transmission and start buttoning up everything. All right, guys, it is the next day. We are back working on the FRS again. I am underneath the car this time, and we are going to be putting in all of the bell housing bolts up here. There's a little cover that goes right here that I got to put on, so I got to take out this bolt. But I'm going to go ahead and bolt up the bottom 2 first, then take out this one and put the cover on. And then I'm going to get all of the bolts on the bottom that I can get to, and then we'll put the car back down, and I'll tighten the ones on top, install a starter, and go from there. All right, so down here we have this cover on the transmission now with these 2 bell housing bolts. This nut is on, this nut is on. And then over here, I have a bell housing bolt up here that's in. I don't know what this hooks up to, either right here or the starter up top. I'm thinking based on how it's shaped, probably the starter up top. And then down here, we got the bolts for the motor mounts in. You can see one right there, and then there's one in here. That's all tightened. And then I connected this ground strap right here, and another ground strap right here, and then hooked up this lower hose. And I think that's it for down here. So now we're gonna go back up top. Well, that's not completely it for down here. We have exhaust stuff that has to, we got the header that goes down here, or the exhaust manifold, and then the front pipe right there, as well as all like the skid plates and stuff that go under here. But we are gonna wait and do that stuff last. I wanna get everything in the engine bolted up first. So now we're gonna go ahead and move up top. We're gonna get that starter bolted in, as well as the top bell housing bolts tightened, and we'll put the serpentine belt on and install the AC compressor, not in that order. All right, so now we're working on the front. I'm gonna go ahead and bolt in this AC compressor and then get the belt on. Okay, so we got the belt on the front here. AC compressor is bolted in. I also got the alternator plugged in here. So now I'm gonna go ahead and jump to the back again, and we're gonna hook up that starter and make sure the rest of the bell housing bolts are in, and maybe buckle up a couple things back there. Okay, so the starter is hooked up now. It was a little confusing because there was a ground wire that I didn't know where it hooked, but once I got everything plugged in where it's supposed to, as far as the starter goes, I had to spin it around and orientate it the right way. Everything was pretty obvious how it hooked up at that point. So now all of the bell housing bolts are in, the starter is in and hooked up, and then I moved that sound tube to where it's supposed to be in front of the engine there. So I'm gonna go ahead and see what else needs to be buttoned up back here. I think there are some coolant lines and vacuum lines that need to be hooked up, as well as those main plugs for the harness back there. So I'm gonna go ahead and take care of that stuff now. Okay, so I'm having trouble figuring out where some of this stuff goes, like this exact hose right here. I don't know if it was actually supposed to run underneath the intake and hook up in the back, but there are some spots in the back that hoses need to hook up. I need to figure out which fuel line plugs into which spot on the engine, and that can come after. I think to figure out which hose goes where, the next best thing to do would be to install the air box, because I know some hoses hook up to the air box, and I think that will help me figure it out. But I'm going to go ahead and install this upper radiator hose and then install the air box. Okay, so what this told me is that only this line hooks up to that. That other line was a coolant line, and I figured out that it ran underneath the throttle body from a picture I found online. I don't know if this is exact, but I was able to feed it through here, and now it is right here, and it hooks up right there. Can't really see it, but there is something that it hooks up to down there. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug that one in. And then we got our brake booster that hooks up right here. And then we have two coolant lines that go to our heater core. One looks like it goes right here to this one, and then another one hooks up down here. So I'm gonna go ahead and hook up all of those. All right, so I figured out where these fuel lines go. This one on the bottom goes right here. And I don't know how these go on. And then this top one goes here to the right, and the middle one goes here in the middle. So I'm gonna go ahead and hook those up and hook this up right here. I'm running out of space on this phone, so I'm not gonna time lapse it. I'm just gonna go ahead and do it and then show you when it's done. All right, as you can see, all of that is installed now. Next thing that we gotta do is bolt up the exhaust. So we're gonna install the header and the front pipe and then plug in the O2 sensors. And then all we have to do after that is install the battery and fill it up with fluids. Okay, so we got the header in right now. I tucked up the O2 sensor wires. I'm gonna pull those up in the top, and we have the exhaust hooked up back here. So now all we have to do is hook up the battery, plug in those O2 sensors, and fill it up with oil. Okay, we pulled out the fuel pump relay, which is right here. And I'm gonna go ahead and crank the car to get oil through it. We did fill it up with oil as well. Everything's plugged in, everything's ready to go. All right, here we go. You think that's good enough?
A little more. That should be enough.
All right. All right, here we go. Fuel pump primed. I'm gonna prime it one more time.
Fuel's in the tank?
Half a tank.
Is that from when it sat?
Yeah,
Yeah.
not the best. It'll be okay. The white Civic sat for over a year with the fuel in the tank, and it ran perfectly fine. Here we go. Woo!
Baby, come on.
So close. Woo! Yes! And it sounds good. Heck yeah.
That's awesome.
Heck yeah. Just for my own reference, 92,844 miles is where this engine now has 0 miles on it. Alright guys, that about sums up this video. Since I've recorded all that, I've put about 7,000 miles on that engine, and it's still running strong. I got no problems. So I guess it was a success then. Anyway, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and share it. Maybe share this whole little engine build playlist. We still have a little bit more work to do on this car, suspension related and some paint stuff. So stay tuned for that. The next video that I'll be posting to the YouTube channel will either be on the Mini or the Honda. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you for all of your support. Peace out.